Hello again, everybody. It's that time. It's going to get colder over the next few days, we're told. Most of us facing higher energy bills. From January, though, after Ofgem increased its price cap by 5%. Here's what the chief exec told us.
Unfortunately, unexpected events like the war in the Middle East and some other changes we've seen in the market means that wholesale price has gone up again. We live in a very volatile world, and the fact that Russian gas has basically exited the market that most people in the global community now use means that any event has a big impact on prices.
Ian is with us. Ian, so we've heard from Ofgem, also heard from the present Chancellor, a previous Chancellor and a would-be Chancellor this morning. What did you make of them?
Well, I thought all of them did their best, actually, not to answer your questions, Kay, to be honest with you. Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt pushing back at some of the questions that you put to them. I mean, the killer really for Jeremy Hunt, I think, is twofold. First of all, it's the fact that taxes are going to be rising throughout this Parliament as a proportion of GDP. And then secondly, which you did press him on, was the point that the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, has hammered home in its forecasting, which is that essentially what the Chancellor has done is cut a lot of public spending. A lot of departmental spending has been cut in real terms, because essentially you've got a freeze in nominal terms. So when you take into account inflation, that amounts to a real terms cut. And essentially that's the big story that's emerging, I think, from the autumn statement, is that while ostensibly the Chancellor has cut taxes in quite spectacular ways in some cases, most notably, I think, with the full expensing on the business tax relief. I mean, that's a £10 billion giveaway to business, obviously aimed at boosting productivity and business investment in the economy. And then, of course, you've got the big so-called retail offer, which was to cut national insurance by 2p in the pound. But that really doesn't take account of the fact that this is giving back some of the money that he's been taking from taxpayers during the last 12 months, particularly through these freezing of income tax thresholds. So accordingly, as the OBR points out, there was some headroom, and the Chancellor has spent all of that with tax giveaways rather than in public spending. Very, very interesting, though, that he's done that politically as a strategy, because that is trying to shift the political conversation as we approach a general election back towards tax cuts, which is obviously ground on which the Conservatives feel more comfortable than on public spending, which is obviously where Labour feels more comfortable. So to that end, I think it was interesting the way that you pushed Rachel Reeves on where she would be spending money. I thought that she was quite vague at times on all of that as well. In the meantime, though, we've had this energy price cap announcement today. Not a surprise, given what's been going on, Kay, with wholesale energy costs. If you look, for example, at natural gas, and gas, bear in mind, is responsible for generating more than a third of the UK's electricity. We're very, very heavily dependent on gas, and the price of wholesale gas, if you take it from mid-September to mid-November, well, it was up around 13%. So you could say, on looking at it in those terms, then households are getting off quite lightly with a 5% rise in the energy price cap. But of course, this comes at a time when households are under financial pressure. And I think the key point to make here, if you look at the comparison with last year, well, of course, in January this year, the government was supporting households with £67 a month in subsidies, and that benefits obviously people who are lower users, and so perversely they're going to be the ones that feel the impact of this hike in the energy price cap most keenly.